Mary wakes up at dawn, the soft hum of the alarm pulling her from sleep. Today is monumental. It's her first day at school. Downstairs, her Uncle Frank clatters pans in the kitchen, whipping up breakfast. But Frank isn't just her uncle, he's her father too, a truth wrapped in tragedy. When Mary's mother passed away, Frank took on the role of both protector and parent. Yet, this morning, Mary isn't excited. She argues bitterly, insisting school isn't for her. She doesn't see the point and dislikes dealing with people. Calm but firm, Frank tells her she must go. It's non-negotiable. Reluctantly, Mary boards the bus, her mind swirling with resentment. In her first class, a cheery math teacher named Bonnie introduces basic addition and subtraction. Mary, however, is unimpressed. The simple equations bore her.
3 plus 3? Really?
And soon her restlessness shows. Interrupting the lesson, she speaks out of turn, earning a sharp rebuke from Bonnie to raise her hand before speaking. Sensing a challenge, Bonnie throws her a tough question. To everyone's surprise, Mary nails the answer with ease.
What is 15 plus 17?
32.
Yeah.
Undeterred, Bonnie ups the ante, posing a complex multiplication problem that even calculators seem to falter on.
Tell me what 57 multiplied?
Mary hesitates, and Bonnie assumes she's stumped. Until Mary calmly delivers the correct answer.
7,695.
Leaving Bonnie speechless. Meanwhile, the headmistress greets the new students with a welcoming smile, but Mary's teenage-like sarcasm disrupts the atmosphere. She speaks bluntly, demanding the headmistress call Frank to take her home.
I want you to get on your phone and call Frank and tell him to get me out of here.
When Frank arrives, his disheveled demeanor catches Bonnie's eye. Later, she learns he spends his Fridays at a bar, a habit masking deeper emotional wounds. Determined to understand, Bonnie approaches Frank, who apologizes profusely for Mary's behavior. He explains that nerves got the best of her. It was her first day after all. But Bonnie shifts the conversation, revealing her fascination with Mary's uncanny math skills. Frank reluctantly admits Mary's brilliance, explaining she's mastered old-school problem-solving techniques from World War II camps, skills he himself learned years ago. He implores Bonnie not to make a big deal of it. He wants Mary to grow up feeling normal, not alienated by her intellect. Back home, Frank has a heartfelt talk with Mary about breaking their agreement not to show off her genius. They strike a new deal. She'll tone it down at school. Mary apologizes, and later they head to the harbor, where Frank works as a machinist repairing boats. The day ends with Mary playing on the beach, her cat a constant companion. As days pass, Mary adjusts to school,
Good morning, Miss Stevenson.
forging tentative connections with other kids.
Is his name Fred? He has just one eye.
During an exam, Bonnie hands out test papers. Moments later, Mary announces she's done, barely glancing at the sheet.
Done.
This time, Bonnie isn't fazed. She hands Mary a university-level exam to test her limits. To her astonishment, Mary completes it effortlessly, her confidence palpable. Curious about this extraordinary child, Bonnie delves into Mary's family history. She discovers that Mary's mother, Diane, was a world-renowned mathematician who cracked unsolvable equations. But her brilliance came at a tragic cost. Diane's life ended in suicide, shrouding her legacy in sorrow. After Diane's tragic death, Frank took on the responsibility of raising Mary, determined to shield her from further pain. One evening, Bonnie finds Frank at a local bar and confronts him about Mary's extraordinary talents. She shows him the exam Mary aced, demanding the truth. Reluctantly, Frank opens up. He recalls the night Diane wanted to talk, but he postponed it for a date. When he returned, he found Mary alone on the couch and Diane lifeless in the bathroom. She had taken her own life. Mary's father had abandoned her years earlier, leaving Frank to pick up the pieces. Mary's behavior, he admits, changed after that night. Bonnie insists that Mary is a rare genius, but Frank, resolute, says he wants her to have a normal life, unburdened by labels or expectations. The next day, Mary rides the school bus, where the class is buzzing about an animal project. A boy proudly carries his creation, but a bully knocks it out of his hands, smashing it to pieces. Outraged, Mary reacts impulsively, striking the bully with a heavy book and causing a bloody nose. This lands Frank in the headmistress's office. She acknowledges Mary's brilliance and offers a scholarship to the prestigious Oaks Academy for Gifted Children. Frank declines, revealing that his family has a fraught history with Oaks and he doesn't want Mary to face the same pressures. Back at school, Mary apologizes to her classmates, promising not to lash out again. To make amends, she leads the class in applauding the boy with the broken project, declaring him the best of them all. Later, Frank takes Mary to meet her grandmother, Evelyn, for the first time. Evelyn presents Mary with a sleek laptop loaded with advanced mathematics books. To Evelyn's surprise, Mary dismisses the gift, saying she's already mastered the material. Later, Frank confronts Evelyn about her sudden reappearance, suspecting the headmistress called her. He demands to know why she waited 7 years to see her granddaughter. Evelyn sidesteps the question, focusing instead on how unsuitable she finds their living situation. Frank is unimpressed, brushing off her veiled criticisms. Inside, he finds Mary engrossed in her laptop but decides to revisit the conversation with Evelyn. He reminds her that Diane's suicide note explicitly stated that Mary should never live with her grandmother, emphasizing Diane's wish for Mary to have a normal childhood. Evelyn counters, arguing she can give Mary a luxurious life surrounded by opportunities and scholars. Frank, unyielding, accuses Evelyn of wanting to mold Mary into another Diane, a prodigy trapped by expectations. Frustrated, Evelyn warns him to consider Mary's future carefully or risk a custody battle. Soon after, Frank notices Mary burying herself in her studies, refusing to go outside. Concerned, he forces her to take a break, worried she's becoming reclusive. Meanwhile, Evelyn follows through on her threat, filing for custody. The legal proceedings begin, with the court ordering an evaluation of Mary's living conditions after Evelyn's lawyer argues the home is unsuitable. Frank, anxious to shield Mary from the turmoil, asks their neighbor Roberta to watch her overnight. Roberta, a nurturing figure in Mary's life, agrees without hesitation, treating Mary as if she were her own child. Frank sits at the bar, nursing his drink, when Bonnie joins him. She admits she's troubled by the custody case and knew she'd find him here. They talk late into the night, sharing fears and unspoken feelings. When Bonnie asks what he's most afraid of, Frank's answer is clear in his expression. He's terrified of losing Mary. Their connection deepens, and they eventually head back to Frank's house. Bonnie, however, feels uneasy about staying with her student's guardian. By morning, her guilt grows when Mary unexpectedly arrives, leaving Roberta's house without permission. Spotting her teacher, Mary smiles knowingly, but Bonnie, flustered, hurries away. Frank's initial joy at seeing Mary turns to anger when he realizes she left without informing anyone. He scolds her, frustration boiling over, as he laments that he can't have a moment to himself. Hurt, Mary retreats to her room in tears. Guilt soon catches up with Frank, and he apologizes, promising to be more understanding. Their fragile peace is disrupted by a letter from the court requiring Mary to spend 2 days with her grandmother. Reluctantly, Mary goes. Evelyn welcomes her warmly, showing her photographs of Diane, rekindling memories of her mother's brilliance and tragic demise. Meanwhile, Bonnie confesses to Frank her fear of losing her teaching position after their night together. Frank reassures her, though the situation weighs on them both. The next day, Evelyn takes Mary to a university and shows her the Wall of Honor, dedicated to mathematicians who have tackled history's 7 toughest equations. Only one spot bears a name, Diane, for her work on the Navier-Stokes equation. Evelyn explains that Diane was close to solving it, a feat that would have secured her a Nobel Prize, but her untimely death left it unfinished. Inspired, Mary vows that her picture will one day grace that wall. Evelyn introduces Mary to a mathematician, urging her to solve a complex equation. Pressured, Mary falters, unable to focus. Frustrated, Evelyn berates the mathematician, but as they leave, Mary points out an error in the problem. They return, and Mary swiftly corrects and completes the equation. Evelyn and the mathematician are stunned by her brilliance. When Mary's residency with Evelyn ends, she returns home, where Frank greets her with open arms. She admits she loves Evelyn, but doesn't want to live with her, calling her too controlling. Frank reassures her that he'll never leave her side. The custody battle resumes the next day. Evelyn attempts to sway the court by bringing in Mary's absentee father as a guardian. However, Frank's lawyer exposes the man's complete lack of involvement in Mary's life. The court rules in Frank's favor, granting him custody. At home, Frank tells Mary about her father's court appearance. Overwhelmed, Mary breaks down, saddened that her father didn't even try to connect with her. To lift her spirits, Frank takes her and Roberta to the hospital, where they quietly observe families celebrating the birth of their children. As they watch, Frank recounts the joy and love that surrounded Mary's birth. The night becomes a poignant reminder of the innocence and hope Mary continues to bring to his life. After countless court sessions, Frank's lawyer approaches him with a grim suggestion: place Mary in a care home where a suitable family could adopt her. The proposal stuns Frank, who protests, but the lawyer insists it's a compromise to avoid Evelyn winning custody outright. He warns that Evelyn's wealth and influence could sway the judge, offering Mary a life Frank might struggle to match. The words weigh heavily on Frank. Reluctantly, he agrees and meets a kind family who promises to care for Mary. Though his heart breaks, he consents, and the trial ends in a stalemate, neither side fully victorious. The day Frank takes Mary to her new home is agonizing. Tearfully, she begs him not to leave her, accusing him of breaking his promise to always stay by her side. Frank assures her she can visit monthly and live with him when she's older, but the words do little to ease her pain. As he hugs her, she lashes out, sobbing as he departs. Her cries of abandonment echo behind him. Distraught, Frank pours himself into his work until Bonnie visits, trying to comfort him. He shares stories of raising Mary, his voice heavy with regret. Overwhelmed, he pushes her away, unable to face his emotions. The next day, Bonnie stumbles upon an adoption ad for Mary's cat and immediately notifies Frank. Alarmed, Frank rushes to the shelter and discovers the cat was surrendered by someone allergic, Evelyn. Realizing Evelyn orchestrated Mary's adoption, he and Roberta visit the family, finding Mary now living with her grandmother. When Frank pleads with Mary to come home, she refuses, bolting outside in confusion. Before leaving, Frank hands Evelyn a notebook, Diane's private journal, revealing her work on the Navier-Stokes equation. Evelyn, skeptical, accuses Frank of lying, insisting Diane would have publicized her success. Frank explains that Diane entrusted him with her work, instructing him not to share it until after Evelyn's death. Shocked, Evelyn is left alone with the notebook while Frank consoles Mary. She cries about losing her cat, but Frank reassures her that the cat is safe with him. Together, they return to Evelyn, where Frank and the grandmother have a final confrontation. Evelyn, devastated by the realization that her ambition drove Diane to despair, breaks down. Leafing through the notebook, she discovers Diane's tear-stained pages, confirming her brilliance and deep unhappiness. Evelyn finally contacts a mathematician to announce Diane's solution to the Navier-Stokes equation, honoring her daughter's legacy. Months later, Mary's extraordinary intelligence earns her a spot at the university, despite her young age. After her lectures, Frank picks her up, taking her to the playground where she runs, laughs, and plays like any other child. Watching her with her friends, Frank feels a sense of peace. Mary may be a prodigy, but in this moment, she's just a kid, happy, free, and loved.